Okay, we're ready to do the fourth plank, and we know there's approximately 12, so we're not quite halfway yet. But we're going to do a different plank. We're now going to turn to this, the last plank before the false keel here. And the reason why I want to do this now is because it's easier to do it before we've got a load of planks and it's getting cramped. And we want this to be a full plank length. So if we've got to do a plank that's a little bit narrower, I'd rather do it in this sort of area underneath the hull, but not right at the end, because it'll be difficult to put it in against there. We know we've got a nice straight edge, so it's the best way of doing that and keeping it tight. But as you can see, it's not going to sit correctly as it is, so we need to put a twist in at the back, like so, and we're also going to have to put a twist in at the front, and we're going to have to shape the front, and we'll do that a bit differently than we have been doing, because we need to get the curve in. So this plank is probably distinctly different to all the others that we're going to lay, and we can probably put the next plank in along after that, which would be going there like that, and then we're starting to close the gap. I've said this before, there is more scientific ways of doing this. We can do a planking fan and work out distances of all the planks and how thick they need to be so that we can have them even. But that's, for me, too technical for absolute beginners. If you're interested in the planking fans though, you can go and have a look at my build of HMS Fly, where we deal with that in quite a bit of detail, and I show you how to make one. But we're not going to worry about that too much at this stage. We're going to lay planks as we go. I think it's very unlikely that we'll get away without putting any steelers in. So steelers are little wedge-shaped planks that go in the back. They're not true to how the ship was built, but they're not going to get seen. So let's concentrate on doing this this plank here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the twists in. So we want to mark out where we think those twists should go. So this plank is just lifting away. Let's see if we can get you a bit closer. The plank is just lifting away from the bulkheads. The last one that's sort of in contact is here. So the twist is starting there. But ultimately we're going to need to get this completely flat. And when you put a twist in, it will raise this profile here, will sort of bobble up. So we're not going to put the twist in where we think we should. We're going to put it a little bit further away. So I'm thinking probably about there. So we're going to want that nice and flat against that straight edge like that, and put a twist in at that point there. So just so we don't confuse ourselves, we'll rub that out, and there we go. So I'm going to mark that as my mark point, and then we probably need to put a little twist in at the front here so that we've not got as much resistance from the wood. So I'm going to do that there. So that's a twist that way, and that's a twist that way. Okay, so it's clear to me where I'm putting my twists in. So once again, just as a reminder, because we're doing this fully, and I know that you're absolute beginners, so you need these reminders. When we steam this, we'll hold it between these two, so our hands are well away from the steam, and we'll give it a twist so that it's twisting roughly where we've put the pencil, like so, and just hold it over the kettle. So I'm going to go and put the twists in, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so we've put our twists in, and that's making the plank lie a lot more naturally without having to do anything really. So yeah, that's really good. So let's get our mark. What I'm going to do is we're going to dry fit this, and then we can make sure it's not moving while we mark out what we need to do. So making sure it's nicely tight up against that keel there. Put our first pin in. And it's just the same as we've been doing on these upper planks. We're just making sure that the plank isn't moving about while we're doing what we need to do. So miss a bulkhead, go to the next one. There we go. So that's just going to stop our plank from moving about now. So what we need to do is make sure that we're keeping the plank in contact with all of the bulkheads. And then here, we've got to shape it. So what we're doing is keeping the bulkhead in contact, but the shape of the hull is going that way now, planing upwards, as well as planing towards the keel. So we've got multiple directions, but we can see where this is curving, and we need to cut that into the plank. So if we hold the plank down to the bulkheads, we can see that that will partly naturally keep it into contact. We are going to chamfer this as well, which will help, but I'm going to mark off where this dips beneath here. I'm marking that off. So we've got a little line which is the curvature of the inside of the prow piece that's just dipping behind the plank there. So that's where we're going to start our shaping, and then if I hold this in place, it re-emerges here. So we've basically got to go from that point to that point, but not in a straight line. It needs to be slightly rounded, like so. Now we've got plenty of length of plank to play with here, so we can shape this, and if it's not quite right and we need to keep shaping it and we shorten the plank, it doesn't matter. We've got plenty there to mess with, and the twists aren't critical to be in the places that they are. They're just sort of approximations, so it's not a problem if it becomes an issue. So what we're going to do is we're now going to remove the nails so that we can remove the plank. And we're going to cut that into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip the plank off. You could use a razor saw if you preferred. There we go. And then we're going to shape it with, you can use your sanding stick or a file, whatever you prefer, and just follow that line we've drawn. Actually, I'm going to go with my sanding stick. I think it's just that bit quicker. So I've got the shape about right there. So I can now line that up with my mark and just see if that sort of sort of looks about right. And yes, it does. I'm happy with that. So, going to put a chamfer on the back here. That's going to thin that out, which is going to be helpful. So you can see what I've done is I put a chamfer along that full edge there. So when we put this on flat, it's just sitting a little bit more flush. There we go, that's looking good. So I'm just going along, and we have adjusted where our point is. So that's because we've shaped it but not gone all the way to the line that we drew. So I'll remove that mark and remark where we are. And then we should be able to just nail this up and trim the end as we have been doing. So that's, in my book, the shaping done. That's as much as we need to do. I am going to put a chamfer along this length though. That's just going to help with the fit, as it has done before. And we can stop when we get to the twist, because then it's sort of lying flat anyway. There you go, that's giving me a nice tight fit. And then we've got our little twist there. And that's sitting nicely in line. So if it's not sitting in line, correct it. You want it to be slightly in line, even if you've got to just push it up a little bit, that's not a problem. This one has to be nice and straight. Don't worry about the rest of it. We'll sort that when it's sanding. So the fact that we've got a little step and it's not smoothly going in, we do all that when we sand it. Right now, it's about getting the shape right and it lying flat. So I'm happy with that. So yeah, now if you want, we know where the end is. You can mark this off like so, and cut it now, so you don't have to worry about doing it when it's glued on, especially as we've got this little bit of keel that sticks out underneath where the rudder will go. So there we go. That's our plank. We're committed. We know exactly what we're doing. We know we've got it lined up. We know it sits flat. I mean, it almost sits correctly as it is. So we can now glue that in. So we are going to be gluing slightly differently this time. So I'm going to mark, where's the line? So I'm going to draw a line on each bulkhead, which is the point where the plank is terminating. And then when we get to this bit here and we've not got bulkheads, I'm going to draw a line. And the reason we've done that is to know where to put the glue, and then on this bit here we'll put some glue on the end, so when we're nailing it in. Now this can be a little bit harder to nail into, the MDF, so we might end up putting clips on this rather than putting nails in. So we can clip that and hold that into place, and that's probably easier than putting nails in. So when the plank comes away from the bulkhead, the last bulkhead is going to be that one that we could possibly put a clip in, a nail in. We'll probably be clipping, and I might even clip there as well. So we need to get some clips to hand before we start putting the glue on. Right, so we put some adhesive on our start point here, and all the way along that chamfer that we put on. Anywhere we think the plank might actually make contact. Not sure that it will on these bits, but we'll put some on anyway. And we can see here that it absolutely will. And then, like I said, we'll put some on the inside of the plank, just on this front edge here. Right, and as always, we'll start by nailing from the center point, or the point that we marked out. I don't think we marked it on the center this time. I think that's probably the center one, but doesn't hugely matter. So again, making sure it's nicely pushed up against that keel there, and first nail in. And just like we've been doing all the way through this planking process, we're just going to move out evenly from both sides. So I bent the nail there. That means that there wasn't enough wood for that to go into. So we will be clipping from this point on. So let's put one on the end there. Just be careful that the clips don't pinch the plank upwards and take it out of shape. But that looks good. And then we can get back to planking, nailing, sorry, the plank at the front here. Okay. Pressing that down nice and firmly, and then I think we're gonna clip that point there and clip that there, and that will hold it nice and flush. And then just gonna go along and get rid of any excess glue. We don't worry about glue build-up underneath the plank. If anything, that just adds a bit of strength, but we don't want anything that's going to get in the way of laying the next plank or creating a gap, because you can't butt up tightly against it. There we go, and that is our plank down. And you know, we've done some shaping there, and that's as sort of as sophisticated as we're going to get on this particular build. So now all we've got to do is fill the gap, and we can work in both directions, but you need to have a mind to where you want to have a thinner plank or a thinner 2 planks. So there's two methods of doing this. You can either now measure this distance and go, okay, how many, and divide it by the width of your planks, so you can work out how many planks will go into there. There's different ways of doing it, but getting a strip of paper and cutting it to length and then laying it out on a rule will give you the measurement. Or you can use something like this. This is my acetate, which allows me to measure pretty much exactly. So that is 41 millimeters. So that means we're going to need 8.2 planks to fill that gap. Now that's at its widest point, and the transom here will probably need more, and at the bow we will definitely need less. So we'll be tapering all of the planks, but at 8.2, let's just see, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that's 12 planks. We're going to have a gap, and we don't want a 0.2 millimeter gap. So what we might do is, or what you could do is you can narrow, say 3 or 4 planks by 1 millimeter and put an extra plank in, so that you've rather than having 12 planks in, you're going to have 13 planks, but 3 of them are slightly narrower, and that will give you a better look. And if you were doing outside planking and you're varnishing it, then you absolutely want to do that. But because we're doing the first planking, it matters less. So what we will do is we'll do probably a shaped plank at the end, or 2 shaped planks, and we'll do them at this bit underneath, but mainly because it's a slightly flatter area, so it's easier. But ultimately, as long as we've got a completely smooth planked area at the end of this build, it's not a big problem. Now the other thing to say is the 5 millimeter planks might not be exactly 5 millimeters, and as I check here, although the maths is telling me that we'll have a gap, when I lie the planks across it, I actually don't have a plank, so I don't think we need to worry about it. I don't have a gap like I thought we were going to have. So if we do get a gap, that's from over tapering maybe, or some over chamfering, I should say. So we just have to be careful, but we know that just by looking at this, that you were going to have at least 1, I suspect maybe 2 steelers at the end, and every one of those planks has to be tapered as we go. So it doesn't matter which way we work, whether we work from here that way or here that way, whatever's easiest, really. I think personally it's easier to put the next plank in there, because we've got some carrying on of shaping to do, and when we get to about this part, which might be 3 planks in, that's when we're back to more tapering. So yeah, I think certainly putting the next plank in from the bottom is the way to go. Yeah, but what we will do with that plank is we'll let it follow its natural course, and as you can see, that means we are going to have a gap, and that's where we're going to put our steeler in. So that's what's coming up. We'll put that on the next plank. I'm going to leave this to dry overnight, so we can take the clips off, take the nails out, and what have you. I can't put the other one on just yet, so I'm going to wait until tomorrow morning, put the other one on, and then I'll come back to you Well, for you it'll be in a moment or in the next episode, because I'm not quite sure how this is all falling, but for now I need to let that dry. So we are on our 5th plank now, and we're back to working down. I've already tapered this and worked out where my bend should be and all of that good stuff. And what I want to do now is show you a different method of bending the plank. So I've showed you my preferred method, which is steam, but there are other methods. You can use plank benders, or you can use one of these. This is a mechanical plank bender. It's a manual system. It's basically like a spring-loaded pair of scissors that has a cutting blade and an angled stop. You see the angle on there, and what this allows you to do is to put a curve in by incrementally weakening the wood. Is how it basically works. So what we've done with the steam is we've sort of put a bend in that's sort of feels right, but there's no great science behind it. You can do it more scientifically and what have you. But this is a way of doing it and keeping everything dry, not messing with the steam. Like I've said before, I prefer not to soak my planks because it opens up the grain and it causes all sorts of other potential problems. So how this works is you put an indentation in the back, so you gently squeeze and you can see it's put a little indentation in it, and then you move it along and do another and keep repeating that, and that allows you can see it's already basically to crimp the plank into shape, and it works fine for this sort of stuff. It does have some disadvantages. Obviously you can't do it on an inside curve that you want to see, so you couldn't do it on planks on the inside here because you're going to see all the crimps. So that's one big downside. It only does outside curves. It is also possible, if you press too hard, it does take a little bit of practice to actually chop the board off, although this is fairly decent wood. And what you can do also is, once you've got used to it, if you do crimps that are much closer together, you can actually form some really tight curves. You know, it's quite a handy tool, and those of you that are building along with the Sherbourne will have seen that it's listed in the recommended tools in the build manual. I have a couple of these only because they were free gifts in kits I bought. And once you get used to using them, you can use them quite quickly, but it is weakening your plank. But you can see I've been able to put a curve in there quite quickly, and I can now line that up with my spot, and you know, that will lay down quite nicely. So yeah, it's just an alternative way of doing it, so I just wanted to show you that. So you've not missed anything because you've seen me do tapering before, and then we're still not tapering at the back, we're maintaining the full width at the back on this plank. So that's ready to be glued in the same way as we've glued the others in. So I'll do that and then I'll come back to you for the next plank. So we're now doing the 5th plank down, the 6th plank we've put on, and what's happening now is the shape is starting to change. So here it's kicking out more and we've got a more acute bend, whereas here the bend is less acute, and you should find that the sort of the clinkering you get, or the need the plank has to kick out at the bottom, starts to reduce. So actually we can start by shaping the plank at the front. and doing it that way rather than working from the middle out. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our plank and we're just going to plop it in like that, and we can see that if we leave it square you're going to have that gap. So we want to sort of cut that off so that the plank is better fitting, and we can do that before we taper it, and it doesn't have to be exact, so we're just going to nip it with the side cutters there, and there you go. You can see that goes in now, and we're ready for twisting it around. So we'll mark our position as per normal, which is there. So the other thing that we're going to start to experience is that the tapering we're doing is going to start getting a bit longer, and we'll start a bit closer. So as we put this down in its central place and push the plank down, you can see it's wanting to cross over from about this point here. So that's where we're going to mark it. So the taper's going to get a bit longer. Actually, I'd even argue it's maybe there. So we'll do it from there. So our tapers are going to get a bit longer. But I'm also going to show you a different way of removing the taper. So we're going to use some different tools and show you a different way. So I'm going to draw the taper on as we have done using a ruler. There we go. Just get my steel rule, and there you can see that. So we're going to go from that outside mark to about halfway. Right, so this time I'm going to use a tool that's dedicated to the job. So this is a strip clamp, and as you can see it's a spring-loaded clamp. I keep meaning to do a tool review on it, I will do. And what we do is we put the strip in, just open that up a little bit, and line the marked out line where we're going to cut the plank with the top. So it's at the top there, and I want it to go there like that. There we go. So what we've got protruding is what we want to remove. So you could go along and skim it with a knife, but I'm going to use a little mini plane for this. Now the advantage is you get a very nice precision cut. I'm just going to turn it around the other way because I'm right-handed. The disadvantage is you're not getting any little wedge-shaped leftovers because you're basically just planing it all away. So let's just make sure that's nice and tight. There you go. And we can take it right down to the metal. And you know, without any sanding, you've got a perfectly flat line. It takes a bit longer than cutting it with a knife. Does it save you anything? I'm not 100% sure that it does, but it does give you a nice finish. So we're also at the point where everyone's individual sanding and shaping of the planks will be starting to make differences, and so no two hull will be the same. So you're now in a position where I'm having to leave you to your own judgment as to whether you want to put the degree of taper you want to put on and the length of taper you want to put on, and whether you want to put a chamfer on or not. So these are all decisions that you're going to have to make by looking at each individual plank and working out what you want to do and how you want to do it. So just take your time, one plank at a time, and lay it with a bit of care, bit of thought, lots of dry fitting. I will continue to show you each plank so that you can see anything else that we come up against, but effectively this is what we're doing. Choose your method of cutting down your plank, keep measuring it, keep test fitting it, make sure you're happy with it. Put twists in if you need to, put bends in if you need to using steam, and you should be okay. Right, we're ready to put the next plank on, and we could go in two different directions here. We could put one on here and continue what we're doing, or we can put one on here and start working up. We're getting to a point where we're likely to have a plank that is going to be an odd shape. You can see that what's happening here is we're getting a gap here that's wider than it is here, and when you want to start laying the planks down and let them fall naturally, you can see that we're starting to get a gap, so we have to start. There's all sorts of technical terms for this, but we basically put in little wedges in to fill the gaps, and I can never remember what the ones at the front are called. The ones at the back are called steelers, but they have a different name at the front. Don't know. So what we don't want to be doing is forcing this into shape and making it do things it doesn't want to do. We want to let it fall naturally and then fill the gap if that's what we need to do. And it's the same here. And naturally, we're starting to find that we've got to do tapering at both ends, because you can see there it doesn't really want to fit, and even when we bend the plank, it's still only going to conform a certain amount, and the issue that you have of clinkering that I've demonstrated there will start to get at the back, and we don't want to do that. I mean, if you bend the plank that way, you can get rid of it, but it's difficult to do, and you can snap the planks, and kits generally give you not much in the way of spares. So we're relying on bending it that way and hoping for the best. So when we get to this stage and this is looking like it's getting quite complicated to do, because we're beginners, we're going to go back to the bottom here where it's a lot straighter and a lot easier, and work up, and that means eventually we'll get to a plank probably sort of there that's like that, and we're going to be shaping it to fit. That's what's likely to happen. Now there's all sorts of people that will tell you you've got to do it a particular way and you've got to do it right. On this first one, all we've got to do is cover this so that we can then sand it into shape. And it doesn't matter what shape it is underneath because it's getting covered. It will matter more on the second one, and we'll concentrate on doing it right more on the second one. But for this level, it doesn't matter as much. And because you're a beginner, I want to keep it simple, and that's why we're not doing complex maths and working things out. Just showing you simply how to go about it. So we're going to go back to the bottom because it's straighter and it's more simple. And what we're going to have to do is put a little bend and twist in, and we're probably going to have to curve this and put a twist in as well. So first thing we want to do is find our start point of the plank. So I'm just going to bring you in a bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. So what we're doing is we're using the top corner of the plank there, that top corner, and getting it level with where we want it to come into contact, which is this point here. So there we go, and we know we're starting at that corner, and then you can see that underneath there we're coming out about this point here, and that's following the line onto that curve. So we are going to have a little bit of filling to do, but we're not going to worry about that now. So we've got to draw a curved line from there to there, which is, you know, at this stage we're just roughing it out. There we go. And when I say we're roughing it out, that's exactly what we're doing. So we'll cut this out first before we mark the point, because we might tidy it up and that might shorten it. So we're not marking our middle point until we've got this bit shaped and right. So let's get that done. So I'm gonna just clip the corner off with my side cutters here. So using a pair of snippers, we cut the corner off, and now with a file we can just get that into shape and then put it against our model and just test that that sort of looks right. We don't need to worry too much, because when we come to sand it we can do some more shaping and then we can correct it with the top level planking. But that's almost there. I am going to want to thin this and put a little bevel in. So we'll take it back and bevel it at the same time. By putting the bevel in, we can get the top much closer to this surface here, and that means it'll just sit better. Now on this end, holding our halfway point, if I just zoom you out a minute, on this end we're going to find that the plank is naturally lifting up, and that's fine. We want to follow its natural line, but we need to know where to put the glue. So you've got two options. You can have a spread glue on the plank, which is a good option because wherever it's going to come into contact you're going to have glue, or we can draw where it's going to be. Problem with the drawing is you've got two hands and you need 3 to 4 to do that, I find. So by holding it into place, what I can do is I can mark a point here where I go, we want to have glue on all of that, and then mark a point there and say we don't need to get glue beyond that point. And if I mark that now on the top of the plank, I can then take that around and I can see that I need to have glue just in this area here. Okay, so let's just plop that back on. So I'm going to mark this one as the last one that needs to have glue on it. So we'll put glue there, we'll run glue there, and we won't put glue on those last ones because we'll have it on the plank. So I think we're ready to put that in. Now you'll have noticed we've not tapered. I've done that deliberately because we're doing quite a bit of shaping on that plank, so it just makes it easier. We might, it just means we'll be doing more tapering on these, but we're pretty much tapering all of them anyway. So let's put our glue down. So we can start at this end point here and run along that bulkhead there, and a strip there I should say, and there, and then we're doing each bulkhead forward. Now if you're finding that your gap here at the front is more extreme than mine, what we've just done at the back, we're putting glue on, you could do at the front as well. But because we've only got a small gap, I'm not going to worry too much about that. We can wipe any excess off. And if you've only got a small gap, you might find that your glue is enough to fill the gap anyway. There we go. So we are ready to start pinning that into place. So we'll start with our, oh, haven't put the glue on the plank after all, have I? Sometimes it's not easy to think while you're filming. There you go. Spread that about a little bit. There we go. Right. So that's our halfway point. Line that up there, and we'll put our first nail in at the halfway point. Remembering to push the plank down so it's nice and tightly butted against the other one. We're always trying to do that as best we can. Obviously now the planks are starting to naturally pull away, that's going to change things a little bit. So we're going with what the plank is telling us. Just going to remove that one and do it again because we didn't get it into the bulkhead particularly well. There we go.
Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so. It's free, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can hit my PayPal link in the text below. Every pound goes straight into the channel to keep the cameras rolling and to do more fun stuff for you to watch.